We've talked about farming games and relaxing games, so today let's talk about the brutal and bloody indie games instead. These games feature a considerable amount of violence and gore without compromising gameplay. Alright, let's dive into the list. First on the list, I've included both games from the Blasphemous series. If you love the first game, you'll definitely want to play the second. Blasphemous itself is a Souls-like Metroidvania with a unique dark presentation and atmosphere, along with challenging yet brutal combat. It boasts an amazing yet eerie atmosphere, and the combat feels incredibly satisfying in the first game, with further improvements in the sequel. The sequel offers more weapon options and movements while retaining the same challenging difficulty. I believe Blasphemous is a must-play for fans of difficult Metroidvania games. OTXO is a top-down roguelite shooter with a massive variety of guns, brutal and bloody combat, and added slow-motion elements for increased variety in gameplay. Some even hail it as the third installment that Hotline Miami should have been. The core gameplay is simple, as it should be. You kill enemies in the stage. It's fast-paced, but it can become even faster as you acquire upgrades. The focus on slow-motion mechanics adds satisfaction to the gameplay as well. If you're looking for a casual yet challenging and satisfying shooter, this game is one of the best. Laike Aged Through Blood is a Motorvania game, meaning it's a Metroidvania featuring motorcycles. You navigate a post-apocalyptic world as a furry character, following a serious and emotional narrative. It takes an interesting approach to the Metroidvania genre, but it's not without its downsides. The core gameplay is excellent, allowing for daring drive-bys at breakneck speed with bloody combat. However, the gameplay often sticks closely to this formula, and some boss fights lack depth. I recommend trying the demo first to see if it's your cup of tea. Turbo Overkill is one of the best and most well-polished boomer shooters in recent years. It incorporates all the elements of retro shooters and takes them to another level with brutal combat, fast-paced movements, and additions like wall running and a grappling hook, resulting in challenging gameplay. You also have a chainsaw leg to help you dispatch your enemies. The plot begins with what appears to be a simple revenge trope and then escalates into full-scale planetary wars. It's pretty fun and brutal, so grab this game, especially if you're into the shooter genre. Deadbolt is a stealth combat game where you play as a Reaper. You die in one shot while your enemies don't, which is why careful approaches and strategic planning are required to finish each stage. It combines puzzle elements with fast action reflexes. For stealth and positioning, you have the ability to fast travel through the ventilation system. How you approach the levels also varies depending on your preference. Do you want to distract enemies by knocking out the door? Or perhaps just enter and blaze your way through with a gun? It's up to you. The game is rather short, but it's fun and quite satisfying. Trepang 2 is one of the best indie shooters out there, with many elements and an overall feel reminiscent of the Fear games, especially the first Fear game and its expansions. It even incorporates both military and horror elements. You play as a super soldier with the ability to slow down time and camouflage tech to help you play stealthily or make a tactical retreat. Overall, the gameplay encourages you to get close to your enemies and stay on the move. If you're a fan of FPS games, it's a no-brainer to get this game. Bloodspear is a student game that is free to play, but it surprises a lot of people with how well it presents itself. It feels like an introduction to Souls-like games, even though the combat is fundamentally different. It's a short game, but I think it deserves more appreciation. The combat is mostly played using a spear, which you use by throwing it at enemies. Most enemies die in one shot, with several exceptions. It only lasts around 30 to 40 minutes until the final boss. Perhaps someday there will be a fully fledged release? I hope the student gets an A for this game. Akane is a simple arena survival game set in a future cyberpunk world. The game is relatively small and straightforward. Despite its size, Akane focuses heavily on important aspects such as satisfying gameplay loops, bloody graphics, and fluid movement. Somehow I get the Kill Bill vibe from this game. The gameplay features one-hit kills for both you and your enemies. As a small arcade slasher, Akane doesn't offer a lot of additional elements such as story and variety. However, the game can provide a good dose of dopamine and quite a bit of fun with its reflex-based gameplay for you to enjoy. Mortal Sin is an intense and brutal action horror roguelike where you must hack and slash your way through an endless nightmare. Death is only the beginning for you, the struggler. Mortal Sin places more emphasis on hack and slash combat using melee weapons. As a result, killing enemies feels more satisfying than ever, especially with mechanics such as parries, combos, dismemberments, and guard breaks. With roguelike elements, no run will feel the same. Mark of the Ninja is a 2D side-scrolling combat game that places heavy emphasis on stealth. While it may not look as bloody compared to others, the stealth and killing animations can be brutal at times. Additionally, it's one of the best stealth games you can get. The gameplay elements in this game are well polished, from the tight controls to the large yet well-designed levels and the platforming mechanics. You can choose to ignore your enemies altogether, or perhaps eliminate everyone in your path. If you don't typically enjoy stealth games, this one might just change your opinion. From the game title alone, Paint the Town Red, it's clear how bloody the game is going to be. It embraces boxy character aesthetics, but the gore in this game is pretty brutal and violent. There are scenarios of bar fights, and even battles underground against monsters. One of the most satisfying aspects of this game is the destruction of enemies each time you kill them. Not to mention, there are a lot of varied weapons as well. It features fun melee combat mechanics, along with flying body parts. In my opinion, it's more like a sandbox stress reliever, but it's even more enjoyable to play with friends. Post Void is a boomer shooter that feels like a combination of Doom and Hotline Miami, as if you've overdosed on acid based on how the game looks and feels. While I may be joking, the game could seriously trigger some individuals with photosensitive issues. Aside from that, the game is seriously good. It features procedurally generated levels, so each run won't be the same. You simply descend through the levels and eliminate everything you encounter. It's one of those simpler yet satisfying roguelikes. Plus, the price is rather cheap, so if you love FPS games and appreciate the aesthetics, this one's for you. Madness. Project Nexus originally started as an online flash game on Newgrounds. Now it's a full-fledged indie game featuring a story campaign, local co-op for up to 4 players, and an arena battle mode. It retains the simple gameplay of its predecessor, but has been polished to the next level. The game features a lot of blood, but you can turn that off if it's not to your liking. Gameplay mostly consists of side-scrolling combat, where you simply have to eliminate all your enemies to progress. Sometimes the AI, especially friendly one, can be quite stupid, but this doesn't detract from the overall fun the game offers. Hotline Miami is one of the legendary indie games, with its amazing, brutal top-down shooter gameplay that requires strategy, undoubtedly leading to frequent deaths. I've grouped these two games together because why not? If you love the first game, you'll also want to play the sequel. While it may look simple, the gameplay is more technical than you might think. Both you and your enemies die in a single shot, so strategizing your movements and taking cover are your best bets. Along with its amazing sound design and pixel art gore, the game is incredibly satisfying to play. Katana Zero is a side-scrolling action game where you, as Subject Zero, possess the ability to slow down time and predict the future while wielding a katana. Just imagining the premise hints at how enjoyable the game will be. It's brutal, fast-paced, and incredibly immersive yet fun. The gameplay is straightforward. There's no health bar, meaning every mistake you make can be fatal. Each level demands a balance of reflexes, tactics, and adaptability. Despite its brutality, Katana Zero also boasts a compelling plot. Unfortunately, there's no sequel yet to continue the narrative.